Just a quick thank you to a non-coin collector for referring me to this video of a statement by one of Lloyd's relatives, and thank you to the vast apostate hour for producing this statement for us.
This statement is for anybody who's interested in the Lloyd Evans thing. The statement's for all the XGW community. The following message reads, I am related to the Croatian family of Lloyd Evans by marriage. I have lived in CSAC for most of my adult life, but after last year's earthquake there was some damage to my home, and I do not live there at the moment. I am personally acquainted with Lloyd Evans, his wife, and her parents. I also know many of the people who go to the local church of Jehovah's Witnesses that they attend, either through my line of work or from everyday life. I have never been a Jehovah's Witness, but my wife had some association. I haven't spoken to either Lloyd or his wife since shortly after I made a comment on a Facebook group in 2017 about his troubled history. These new revelations regarding him going to Thailand and using prostitutes is new to me. I won't have any comment about them since I did not know about it and have only found out about it on the internet. What I have to say is culled from personal recollections, discussions with his wife, my wife, and to a lesser extent, Lloyd himself. My English is not completely fluent, as I have not been formally schooled in the language, and I have been assisted in the second draft to correct grammatical mistakes and placing them in a way that is easier to understand. I also asked for information from former Jehovah's Witnesses regarding their practices in order to better understand and place into perspective. I have been contacted by many concerned former Jehovah's Witnesses online, some of whom were close to Lloyd and asked for information. I have been reticent to do so due to the harassment I got online and in real life last time. This time, I am far enough away from him that I do not fear the repercussions, at least from a real life aspect. I do know that he has a lot of supporters online who will do anything to discredit and troll information that is negative to him. Many have already noticed that. I realize that there is a burden of proof that everyone seeks from me. They ask for pictures, text messages, emails, and even explicit photos. I want to be clear that I possess none of these. I was also asked to report this to the police. Again, I only know what was told or shown to me. I did make an attempt to contact UK police in 2017, but was unsuccessful in getting this investigated. The period of time in that I'm going to speak about here are the years of 2007 to 2014, which is roughly the period of their wedding to about the time Lloyd had gone full-time into his work with former Jehovah's Witnesses. Should you choose not to believe me, I understand. Had I have known that much of the information I was provided at the time would be important to have over a decade later, I would have done more than just look at it or nod my head and not ask questions. So take what I will tell you as a witness to the character of Lloyd Evans, much of which you already know from first-hand knowledge. I am also concerned about the current situation of his wife, and I am trying hard not to directly implicate her into much of this for her own protection. Lloyd was married in Croatia in 2007. It was on the coast and many were invited, including my wife. We were not married yet, so I did not attend. The news around the town and especially in the family was initially positive. It was sad to see such a well-respected young woman leave permanently for the UK, but the opportunities for her were great. I wished them nothing but good fortune. By the time 2007 was nearing a close, it was clear that there were a lot of dark issues with Lloyd. He was an overbearing husband and had a clear idea as to how his wife should treat him and her position in the household. Small things he made huge issues out of and was always onto his wife for things he thought she meant or did. He also had rules about his own privacy, which he berated her for. Lloyd was active on sex dating online sites, which were suited for people looking for sex, not relationships. He felt this absolved him, and it wasn't truly cheating, but working out his desires and fantasies. His wife found out about this with browser history and on his texts, which he had on a second phone. His online names were, as I can recall, The Gobbler and The Pussy Destroyer. I had some of his chats as they were forwarded to my wife in confidence back in 2007 and 2008. They were very animated, and he had a fetish where the girls addressed him by daddy and he called them daughter. This pattern was established. Lloyd got angry when caught with inconvenient information and blamed his wife for not keeping it in the family where it could be solved by his reasoning. But as a foreign woman in a strange country with a man she barely known, I hope you can understand why she reached out and asked for counsel. After this, Lloyd became careful in his activities, but not careful enough. In 2008, he moved his family to Bromhill Church of Jehovah's Witnesses and became appointed as an elder. It was explained to me he had become surer of himself and relished his new power. It took it upon himself to endear him to many in the congregation. He took the lead with youths and was very interested in their well-being. The problem with his online activities continued. Lloyd often waited for his wife to leave for work to go back on the chat sites. Suspicion was aroused, and sex were found on his phone of a graphic nature. He has a nose which is very protruding, and he liked to fantasize about his nose being able to stimulate a woman while pleasuring orally. His wife found one of these sex, which he stated something about when her parents were leaving so they could meet at her home. His wife found one of the sects which they were stating something about when her parents were leaving so they could meet at her home. A call was made to the number and a young girl answered. Once she found out that it was not Lloyd, she was upset and asked to please not inform her parents. She was 14 years old. Bank records were examined and many of his transactions were in Wales. Lloyd was in a downward spiral. He was drinking heavily and looked weary. He was up all night secretly chatting when he thought his wife was sleeping and had many different chat relationships going. The very next day, another sex was found and the decision was made to confess to elders. But there was a problem with one of the elders there who was suspicious of his actions around young children. At Lloyd's insistence, they were to hold back on the confession and move back and establish themselves at their old Wimslow church. His father was an elder there, and he still had a good reputation. He quickly resigned as an elder soon after the move and thought he could just write it down on paper and move to Croatia. A series of judicial committees were set up, which asked for details. Lloyd felt his confession he wrote would be enough and demanded privacy. He felt since his father was an elder there, he would be fully protected. This turned out to be incorrect, and it was the beginning of his fallout with his father. What his father did do to him was advocate that relocation to Croatia would do him well, and in the end, he was not disfellowshipped. Both parties were relieved to be in Croatia after all that. I met Lloyd for the first time, and he told me how wonderful this country was and had many ambitious plans for establishing himself there. Since I spoke better English than he spoke Croatian, we spoke in English. He looked to me to be a man who had just gone through a huge crisis. He did not know that I knew all about the crisis and his actions which led to it. At or about 2011, Lloyd was serious about quitting Jehovah's Witnesses. I am not sure how the information was relayed to the Croatian Jehovah's Witness Church about his problems in the UK, but I doubt it was from his wife. It had become common knowledge around the Jehovah's Witnesses that he had been unfaithful to her. The initial optimism about having a member overseas turned into suspicion. Lloyd picked up on that, and I believe it was a factor in him wanting to leave the religion quietly. By the end of 2013, everything started to reach its climax. His wife had recently left the religion and was expecting their first child. Lloyd was adamant about doing a public disassociation from the religion. His wife was not completely in agreement with this decision. Though she had genuinely left, it was not the kind of exit she sought and was compelled to author a letter of resignation. She preferred to wait after the baby came, but Lloyd was more interested in making a good video and drawing attention to himself. One of the elders of Jehovah's Witnesses was a client of mine, and I had known him personally for some time. It was during one of my visits to service his home that he asked me what I knew about Lloyd Evans. He stated there were a lot of stories circulating about him and wanted to know what I had heard, if anything, since I was related to his wife's family. I asked him what they knew, and he said, and I will never forget it, everything. The file on Mr. Evans has been forwarded to the Zagreb office and from there to the elders. An elder in the Bramhill congregation, an elder in the Bramhill church had felt he was preparing his 14-year-old daughter for sex. Lloyd had very sexually explicit discussions with this girl and tried to use his position as elder to influence her. I relayed the information I had on him sexting a 14-year-old girl and his wife finding out. He did not know about that. That was all my involvement with that matter, though I noticed on John Cedar's channel that he had said someone from Zagreb would be in on his judicial committee. Lloyd Evans resigned as a Jehovah's Witness in 2013. He stated that it was for apostasy against Jehovah's Witnesses, and I have no reason to doubt that that was one of the reasons. What happened in the Judicial Committee meeting, only Lloyd and 3 Jehovah's Witnesses elders knew. For my part, I know that he was preparing 14-year-old girls for sex in the UK. This is my testimony. Marco.